Over the last few years, a lot of serial killers have been arrested and brought to justice. But serial killers are not always caught. There are many still wandering around the streets. Today, we count down the top 4 serial killers who were never identified. Number 4. The Atlanta Ripper. Over 20 years after Jack the Ripper terrorized London, the city of Atlanta was terrorized by their own unknown serial killer who murdered what is estimated to be between 15 and 21 African American women throughout 1911 and 1912. Rosa Trice was believed to be his first victim after she was found murdered on the morning of January the 22nd. Her head was crushed by a blunt instrument and she had been stabbed in the jaw and had her throat slit. Many more African American or dark-skinned women would be brutally murdered in a similar fashion over the next few months. By the time June rolled around, the killer had finally garnered the attention of the press and was dubbed the Atlanta Ripper. On July the 1st, a young woman named Emma Lou Sharp was waiting for her mother, Lena, to return home from grocery shopping. When Lena didn't show up, Emma Lou went searching for her and encountered an African American man wearing a black rimmed hat. He stated, "I would never hurt girls like you," before suddenly pulling out a knife and stabbing Emma Lou in the back. She managed to escape and survive, but later found out that the assailant had murdered her mother. 1 week later, another woman had an encounter with this same unidentified man before running away. Many different suspects were questioned, and police made attempts to indict some of them for the murders, but no one could be conclusively proven to be the Atlanta Ripper. Number 3. The Honolulu Strangler. The first known serial killer on the island of Hawaii was the Honolulu Strangler, who is believed to have murdered 5 women during the mid-1980s. On the morning of May 30th, 1985, the body of 27-year-old Vicky Gail Purdy was found in an embankment. She had been raped and strangled, and her hands were bound behind her back. The killer was believed to have struck again on January the 14th, 1987, after 17-year-old Regina Sakamoto missed her bus to school. Her body was found the next day. Like the first victim, she had also been raped and strangled, and her hands were bound behind her back. Over the next 3 months, 3 more women, Denise Hughes, Louise Medores, and Linda Pesk, would be murdered in the exact same fashion. Before Linda Pesk was discovered, an informant told police that a psychic had told him the exact location of her body, which turned out to be incorrect. However, when Pesk was found within the same vicinity, the informant became a suspect. His girlfriend claimed that whenever the two of them had a fight, the suspect would leave their house, and these incidents seemed to coincide with the nights of the murders. The suspect was interrogated and failed a polygraph test, but was ultimately released due to the lack of evidence. Months later, a woman claimed she had seen this man with Linda Pesk on the night of her murder. The suspect died in 2005, and no one could actually prove that he was a Honolulu Strangler. But it's worth noting that the murders stopped immediately after he became a suspect. Number 2. The Colonial Parkway Killer. Between 1986 and 1989, the 23-mile Colonial Parkway in Virginia was plagued by a series of unsolved murders. On 12th of October 1986, the bodies of a young lesbian couple, Kathleen Thomas and Rebecca Ann Dowski, were found inside their vehicle, which was pushed down an embankment on the Parkway. They had been strangled and had their throats cut. 1 year later, another young couple, David Knobling and Robin Edward, were found shot to death in a nearby wildlife refuge. On 9th of April 1988, Cassandra Lee Haley and Richard Keith Call disappeared while driving home from a party, and their abandoned vehicle was found on the Parkway the next morning. While their bodies have never been found, they are believed to be victims of the killer. In 1989, Anna Maria Phelps and Daniel Lauer also went missing after driving on the Parkway, and their bodies were found on a nearby logging road a month later. Authorities believe these crimes were all committed by the same person and theorize that he may have been a law enforcement officer or posed as one in order to get the victims to pull over. In 2011, a former deputy sheriff named Fred Atwell was investigated as a possible suspect after he held a phony car raffle to raise money for the victims' families and allegedly pocketed the money for himself. However, there is no evidence to tie him to the murders, so the Colonial Parkway killer's identity remains unknown. Number 1. The Connecticut River Valley Killer. On 25th of October 1978, the body of 27-year-old Kathy Milliken was found in a wetland preserve in New London, New Hampshire. She had been stabbed 29 times. Over the course of the next decade, her killer is believed to have been responsible for the murders of at least 6 more women in the Claremont, New Hampshire, and Connecticut River Valley areas. Most of the victims were found with multiple stab wounds. However, the killer's activity in the area seemed to come to a halt after one of the victims survived his attack. On the evening of August 6, 1988, a pregnant woman named Jane Boriski pulled into a convenience store parking lot in West Swansea. She was attacked and stabbed multiple times by an unidentified male assailant, who left her for dead and drove away. Boriski survived the attack and drove off to find help, but was soon horrified to discover that she had inadvertently caught up with her attacker's vehicle and was now driving directly behind him. Thankfully, she was able to make it to a friend's house and received medical attention. Over the years, Boriski has come to believe that her attacker was a Vietnam veteran named Michael Nicolau, who would become a suspect in the disappearance of his wife in late 1988. In 2005, Nicolau murdered his new wife and stepdaughter before killing himself. However, authorities have been unable to conclusively determine if he was actually the Connecticut River Valley Killer. That's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and make sure to tune in tomorrow for another brand new episode.